Why do brilliant entrepreneurs fail, while people with average ideas build billion-dollar companies? Most people assume business is a competition of intelligence, strategy, or technical skill. They spend years mastering finance, marketing, operations, and sales, believing success belongs to whoever knows the most. But history tells a different story. Every market is made of people. Every transaction is a human decision. And every successful business is built on one invisible foundation: understanding human nature better than everyone else. Think about the companies that dominate the world today. They don't simply sell products. They understand why people buy. They understand what captures attention, what creates trust, what triggers emotion, and what keeps customers coming back. Their greatest advantage isn't that they know more about business. It's that they know more about people. They recognize that behind every purchase is a desire, behind every objection is a fear, and behind every decision is an emotion that logic merely justifies afterward. This is where many ambitious people quietly lose the game. They become obsessed with improving their product while ignoring the psychology of the customer. They believe better quality automatically creates better results. Yet people rarely buy the best product. They buy the product they trust. They follow the leader who makes them feel confident. They invest in the opportunity that feels believable. Perception often opens the door long before facts have a chance to speak. The same principle applies inside every organization. Employees are not motivated by salary alone. Partners are not loyal because of contracts alone. Investors are not persuaded by numbers alone. Every relationship in business is built upon invisible forces such as trust, status, fairness, recognition, certainty, and belonging. Leaders who ignore these forces constantly wonder why talented teams underperform. Leaders who understand them create environments where people willingly contribute more than expected because they feel understood, respected, and valued. One of the biggest mistakes in business is assuming people make rational decisions. In reality, emotion usually makes the decision first, while logic simply explains it afterward. Fear of loss often outweighs the desire for gain. Status influences buying decisions more than price. Confidence attracts opportunities before competence can even be fully evaluated. These patterns have shaped human behavior for thousands of years, and no amount of technology has changed them. The tools evolve, but the psychology remains remarkably consistent. That is why the greatest business advantage is not predicting markets perfectly. It is predicting people more accurately. When you understand what people fear, what they admire, and what they secretly aspire to become, you stop reacting to the market and begin anticipating it. You recognize opportunities long before they become obvious because you are studying the forces that create demand rather than merely measuring the demand itself. The most successful entrepreneurs are rarely those who know the most facts. They are the ones who ask better questions. Why do people hesitate? Why do they trust one brand over another? Why do they follow one leader while ignoring another? Those answers reveal far more than any spreadsheet ever could, because business has always been, and will always remain, a reflection of human behavior. Never forget this. Companies do not compete only through products. They compete through understanding people. The entrepreneur who masters human nature will always have an advantage over the entrepreneur who only masters business. Because markets change, technology evolves, and industries disappear, but human nature remains the one competitive advantage that never goes out of date. One of the biggest mistakes leaders make is believing they must be liked by everyone. They avoid difficult conversations, lower their standards, and say yes when they should say no, hoping that popularity will earn loyalty. For a while, it works. People smile, meetings stay comfortable, and conflict seems to disappear. But over time, something far more dangerous begins to happen. Standards weaken, accountability fades, and respect quietly disappears. A leader who is loved but not respected eventually loses both. Authority has never been about raising your voice or controlling people through fear. Real authority comes from consistency. It is built when your words match your actions, when your decisions follow clear principles, and when people know exactly what you stand for. Human beings naturally trust what is predictable. They may not always agree with a leader's decisions, but they respect someone whose standards remain steady, regardless of pressure or emotion. This is why the strongest leaders are willing to make uncomfortable decisions. They give honest feedback even when it risks temporary disappointment. They protect the long-term health of the organization instead of chasing short-term approval. They understand that saying no at the right moment often creates more trust than saying yes to everything. Popularity seeks comfort. Authority protects the future. Think about the leaders who have had the greatest influence on your life. Chances are, they weren't the ones trying to entertain everyone. They challenged you. They expected more from you. They refused to lower expectations simply because it was easier. At the time, those standards may have felt demanding. Looking back, you realize they helped you grow. Respect is rarely created by making people comfortable. It is created by helping them become better. The same principle applies in business. Employees perform best when expectations are clear. Customers trust companies that remain consistent. Partners value reliability more than promises. People want to know where the boundaries are because clarity creates confidence. When rules constantly change to satisfy emotions, uncertainty replaces trust. And, in uncertain environments, performance almost always declines. Many leaders confuse kindness with weakness, but the two are completely different. You can treat people with respect while still holding them accountable. You can listen carefully without surrendering your standards. In fact, fairness becomes meaningful only when expectations apply equally to everyone. Consistency is what transforms authority from personal opinion into genuine credibility. The irony is that the leaders who stop chasing approval often become the most respected. They are calm under pressure because their decisions are guided by principles rather than public opinion. They don't waste energy trying to please everyone because they know it is impossible. Instead, they focus on creating trust through integrity, competence, and consistency. Over time, people stop following them because they are charismatic. They follow because they believe in the stability those leaders provide. Never build your leadership on the fragile foundation of popularity. Popularity changes with emotion, but authority grows through repeated actions that prove your character. People may admire confidence, but they commit to consistency. In the end, the leaders who create lasting influence are not the ones who hear the most applause. They are the ones whose standards remain unshaken when applause disappears. Many people believe great leaders are defined by one dominant trait. Some admire relentless confidence. Others believe intelligence alone is enough to solve every problem. But history rarely rewards people who rely on only one strength. The leaders who leave the greatest impact understand something deeper. They know exactly when to push forward and when to step back. They know when to speak with force and when silence creates more influence than words. Real leadership is not about choosing between strength and intelligence. It is about knowing which one the moment requires. Imagine two leaders facing the same crisis. The first reacts immediately, making bold decisions before understanding the full situation. Confidence gives the appearance of strength, but impulsive action often creates problems that never needed to exist. The second leader spends so much time analyzing every possibility that opportunities disappear while they are still thinking. One moves without direction. The other never moves at all. Both fail for the same reason. They mistake one ability for complete leadership. The most effective leaders operate differently. They observe before acting, but once the right moment arrives, they move without hesitation. They gather information, study people, and understand the motivations behind every decision. Then they act with confidence, because preparation has already eliminated unnecessary doubt. Their patience is never weakness, and their decisiveness is never recklessness. It is disciplined timing. Business rewards this balance every single day. There are moments when a difficult conversation cannot be postponed. A failing project must be ended. A competitor must be challenged. Waiting only increases the cost. But there are also moments when immediate action creates unnecessary conflict. The smartest move is to collect more information, understand hidden incentives, and allow situations to reveal themselves naturally. Knowing the difference is what separates strategic leaders from reactive managers. One of the greatest misconceptions about strength is that it must always be visible. In reality, the strongest leaders rarely waste energy proving how powerful they are. They conserve their influence until it truly matters. They don't argue over every disagreement or respond to every criticism because they understand that attention is a resource. The more carefully it is used, the greater its impact becomes. Confidence doesn't need constant demonstration. It reveals itself through precise action at decisive moments. Intelligence follows the same principle. Knowledge alone creates very little value if it never becomes action. Brilliant strategies that remain inside notebooks accomplish nothing. The purpose of thinking is not endless analysis, but better execution. The leaders who consistently outperform others are those who transform insight into action before opportunities disappear. They refuse to become prisoners of either emotion or perfection. Ask yourself a simple question. When pressure appears, what is your natural instinct? Do you react too quickly just to feel in control? Or do you delay decisions because certainty feels safer than responsibility? Both habits quietly limit your potential. Growth begins when you learn to replace instinct with judgment. The strongest leaders are not controlled by fear, ego, or urgency. They are guided by awareness. Remember this: force without intelligence creates resistance. Intelligence without action creates regret. But when courage and strategy work together, they become almost impossible to compete against, because the most dangerous leaders are never the loudest or the most aggressive. They are the ones who know exactly when to wait, exactly when to move, and exactly how to make every decision count. Most people don't lose because they make the wrong decision. They lose because they make the right decision too late. By the time they feel confident enough to act, the opportunity has already become obvious to everyone else. The market has shifted. Competitors have adapted. Prices have risen. What once looked like a rare advantage has become ordinary. Success has always favored those who move before certainty arrives, not after. Look back at every major change in business. The companies that dominated new industries were rarely the ones with the biggest budgets. They were the ones willing to recognize small signals before everyone else dismissed them. While others waited for proof, they paid attention to patterns. They understood that every major trend begins quietly. At first, it looks insignificant. Then it becomes undeniable. The difference between leaders and followers is often nothing more than the willingness to act while uncertainty still exists. Most people are trained to seek certainty before taking action. They want complete information, guaranteed outcomes, and universal agreement, but the future never offers those things. Waiting until every risk disappears usually means waiting until the opportunity disappears as well. Progress belongs to people who can make thoughtful decisions without needing perfect conditions. They understand that uncertainty is not a warning sign, it is often the price of being early. This is why strategic leaders constantly ask different questions. They don't ask, "What is happening today?" They ask, "What will probably happen next?" They study changing behaviors instead of temporary headlines. They observe where attention is moving, how technology is reshaping habits, and which problems are quietly becoming more important. By the time everyone else reacts, they have already spent months or even years preparing for the new reality. Being early does not mean acting recklessly. It means developing the discipline to notice weak signals before they become obvious. Every breakthrough starts as an unpopular idea. Every major innovation looks uncertain in the beginning. Every successful business once appeared risky to people who only trusted what already existed. The ability to think ahead is less about predicting the future perfectly and more about recognizing that the future is always being built in the present. Many careers quietly stagnate for the same reason. People become comfortable with today's success and assume tomorrow will look the same. They stop learning because their current skills still work. They ignore changing industries because their business is still profitable. Then, one day, the world changes faster than they expected, and what once felt secure suddenly becomes outdated. The danger was never the change itself. The danger was believing change would wait. Ask yourself an uncomfortable question. Are you preparing for the future you hope will happen, or are you only reacting to the one that has already arrived? That single question separates builders from followers. Builders invest before trends become popular. They develop skills before demand explodes. They adapt while others are still debating whether change is real. Their greatest advantage is not intelligence alone. It is timing. Remember this: the future rarely belongs to the smartest person in the room. It belongs to the person who sees tomorrow while everyone else is still focused on today. Markets reward preparation. Opportunities reward courage. And history repeatedly rewards those who are willing to move before the rest of the world finally realizes it is time to move. One of the most dangerous moments in leadership is not when people begin criticizing you, it is when they stop criticizing you altogether. At first, constant agreement feels like a sign of success. Meetings become smoother, decisions move faster, and everyone appears supportive. But beneath that surface lies a hidden danger. When people are afraid to challenge your ideas, you no longer see reality, you only see a carefully edited version of it. And leaders who lose touch with reality rarely realize it until the consequences become impossible to ignore. Every successful organization reaches a point where honesty becomes more valuable than loyalty. Loyalty without truth slowly turns into blind obedience. People begin protecting the leader instead of protecting the mission. Small mistakes go unspoken because no one wants to create conflict. Warning signs are ignored because everyone assumes someone else will speak first. By the time the truth finally emerges, the problem has often grown far beyond what it could have been. This pattern has repeated throughout history. Powerful leaders rarely fail because they lack intelligence. They fail because they become surrounded by people who tell them what they want to hear instead of what they need to hear. Praise becomes more common than honest feedback. Confidence slowly transforms into overconfidence. Without realizing it, they begin making decisions based on comfort rather than reality. The greatest threat is not outside competition. It is the illusion that everything is fine. The strongest leaders actively seek disagreement. They ask difficult questions even when the answers may be uncomfortable. They encourage people to challenge assumptions, expose weaknesses, and identify risks before those risks become disasters. They understand that temporary discomfort created by honesty is far less expensive than long-term damage created by silence. Truth may bruise the ego for a moment, but it protects the future for years. This requires a rare kind of confidence. Insecure leaders surround themselves with people who constantly agree because agreement feels safe. Confident leaders surround themselves with people who think independently because independent thinking strengthens every important decision. They understand that respect is not measured by how often people applaud. It is measured by whether people feel safe enough to tell the truth when it matters most. The same principle applies beyond leadership. In business, customers reveal weaknesses before competitors exploit them. Honest employees identify broken systems before they collapse. Trusted partners question risky decisions before money is lost. Every uncomfortable conversation contains information that comfort is trying to hide. Those willing to face reality early gain an advantage that cannot be created through optimism alone. Ask yourself a difficult question. Do you value people because they support your opinions or because they improve your thinking? The answer reveals whether you are building an environment focused on appearances or one focused on excellence. Growth has never depended on hearing more praise. It has always depended on receiving better feedback. Never mistake silence for agreement or loyalty for wisdom. The people who help you grow are often the ones willing to challenge you with honesty rather than comfort you with approval. Because in leadership, truth is never the enemy. It is the compass that keeps you moving in the right direction long after popularity, confidence, and first impressions have faded away. The most important decisions in business are rarely made when life feels calm. They are made in moments of pressure, uncertainty, and emotion. A deal falls apart at the last minute. A trusted employee resigns. A competitor launches an unexpected product. Revenue suddenly drops. In those moments, the greatest threat is often not the problem itself. It is the emotional reaction that follows. More businesses have been damaged by impulsive decisions than by difficult circumstances. Most people believe leadership is about making decisions. In reality, Leadership begins by controlling the emotional state in which those decisions are made. Fear narrows your vision. Anger accelerates poor judgment. Excitement creates overconfidence. Panic makes short-term survival appear more important than long-term success. When emotions take control, even intelligent people begin solving the wrong problems because they are reacting to the moment instead of understanding it. This is why exceptional leaders appear calm when everyone else is overwhelmed. Their calmness is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to prevent emotion from becoming the decision-maker. They allow themselves to feel pressure without allowing pressure to dictate their actions. That difference may seem small, but it changes everything. A calm mind notices opportunities that an anxious mind never sees. It asks better questions, gathers better information, and chooses better timing. Think about the biggest mistakes people make under pressure. They fire talented employees after one disagreement. They abandon long-term investments because of temporary setbacks. They accept unfavorable deals simply to escape uncertainty. Later, when emotions settle, they often realize the real problem was not the situation itself, it was the mindset from which they responded. Temporary emotions created permanent consequences. The strongest leaders build a habit of creating distance before making important decisions. They do not confuse urgency with importance. They pause long enough to separate facts from feelings. They ask, "What problem am I actually solving?" instead of reacting to the loudest emotion in the room. That brief pause often becomes their greatest competitive advantage because while others are controlled by the moment, they remain focused on the bigger picture. Emotional discipline also transforms relationships. Employees trust leaders who remain steady during difficult times. Investors gain confidence from consistency rather than dramatic optimism. Customers are reassured by stability instead of panic. People naturally follow those who create certainty when uncertainty surrounds everyone else. Calmness is contagious. So is fear. Every leader chooses which emotion will spread through the people around them. This does not mean becoming cold or emotionless. The best leaders care deeply about people, but they refuse to let emotion replace judgment. They can show empathy while still making difficult decisions. They can listen with compassion while protecting long-term goals. They understand that kindness without clarity creates confusion, while discipline guided by purpose creates trust. Ask yourself one question. When pressure enters your life, does it control your thinking or reveal the quality of your thinking? Because pressure never creates character, it exposes it. Anyone can appear confident when everything is going well. True leadership is revealed when uncertainty tests every decision you make. Remember this, the person who controls the room is rarely the loudest voice. It is usually the calmest mind. Markets will change, people will disappoint you, and unexpected challenges will always appear. But if you can master your emotions before they master your decisions, you will possess an advantage that no market condition, competitor, or crisis can easily take away. Every leader eventually discovers a truth that changes the way they see people forever. You cannot eliminate ambition. You cannot erase the desire for recognition, achievement, or status. These forces have shaped human behavior for centuries, and they exist in every workplace, every business, and every organization. The real question is not whether people are ambitious. The question is whether that ambition will build your mission or quietly destroy it. Many leaders make the mistake of fighting human nature instead of understanding it. They expect everyone to be motivated by the same goals, to work with complete selflessness, or to ignore personal success for the sake of the organization. But people don't stop wanting progress simply because they join a team. They still want to grow, to be respected, and to know that their efforts matter. When those needs are ignored, ambition doesn't disappear. It simply finds another direction. Think about what happens inside organizations where recognition is unfair or opportunities are limited. Instead of competing to create value, people begin competing for attention. Meetings become political. Information is withheld. Credit is protected instead of shared. Energy that should have been invested in innovation is wasted on internal conflict. The organization doesn't fail because its people lack talent. It fails because their ambition has been redirected away from the mission. The strongest leaders understand that ambition is one of the most powerful forms of energy available. Instead of suppressing it, they give it purpose. They create systems where contribution is rewarded, growth is visible, and excellence leads to opportunity. People naturally work harder when they believe their progress depends on performance rather than favoritism. Healthy ambition encourages learning, accountability, and continuous improvement because everyone benefits when success is earned through value. This is why culture matters more than motivation. Motivation rises and falls with emotions, but culture quietly determines where ambition flows every single day. In the right environment, talented people challenge one another to improve. They share ideas because collaboration increases everyone's success. Competition exists, but it strengthens the team instead of dividing it. Individual achievement becomes meaningful because it contributes to a larger purpose. The opposite is equally true. If leaders reward politics more than performance, people quickly adapt. If loyalty is valued more than competence, excellence slowly disappears. Human beings always move toward the behaviors that receive recognition. That is why every incentive, every promotion, and every public example sends a message about what truly matters. Culture is not built by slogans, it is built by what leaders consistently reward. Ask yourself an honest question. Are the people around you competing to become better or competing to become more important? The answer reveals whether ambition is serving the mission or serving individual egos. Great organizations don't eliminate competition, they redefine it. The goal is no longer to defeat one another. The goal is to solve bigger problems together while continuously raising the standard of excellence. Never fear ambition without direction. Left unmanaged, it creates ego, rivalry, and division. Guided with wisdom, it becomes innovation, resilience, and extraordinary performance. The greatest leaders never waste energy trying to change human nature. They understand it, respect it, and build systems that transform one of humanity's oldest instincts into the driving force behind lasting success. For most of history, competitive advantage came from owning more land, more factories, more capital, or better technology. Today, those advantages disappear faster than ever. Artificial intelligence can write, calculate, analyze, and automate tasks that once required years of experience. Information is no longer scarce. Knowledge is no longer exclusive. As technology becomes available to everyone, the question is no longer who has the best tools. The real question is who understands people better than everyone else using the same tools. This is why the future belongs to those who master psychology rather than simply mastering technology. AI can process enormous amounts of data, but it cannot truly experience fear, trust, ambition, loyalty, or meaning. It can recognize patterns, yet it cannot fully understand why human beings choose one opportunity over another, follow one leader instead of the next, or remain loyal to a brand even when cheaper alternatives exist. Technology can accelerate decisions, but human nature still determines them. Look back at everything we have explored throughout this journey. Business has always been driven by people before products. Authority has always outlasted popularity. Great leaders balance strength with wisdom. The future rewards those who act before the crowd. Truth protects organizations better than blind loyalty. Emotional discipline creates better decisions under pressure. Human ambition becomes powerful only when it is directed toward a meaningful purpose. None of these principles have become less valuable because of artificial intelligence. If anything, they have become even more valuable because they are the qualities technology cannot easily replace. As AI continues to automate routine work, human value will increasingly come from judgment rather than information. The people who thrive will not necessarily be those who know the most facts. They will be the ones who ask better questions, recognize hidden motivations, build trust faster, and make sound decisions when the answers are unclear. In a world where everyone has access to similar technology, the rarest advantage will be the ability to understand the emotions and incentives that quietly shape every important decision. Many people are preparing for the future by learning new software, new platforms, or new technical skills. Those things matter, but they are only part of the equation. Technology will continue changing throughout your lifetime. Human psychology has remained remarkably consistent for thousands of years. People will still seek certainty in uncertain times. They will still respond to trust before logic, purpose before instructions, and leadership before management. The tools evolve. Human nature does not. Ask yourself one final question. If every competitor had access to the same artificial intelligence tomorrow, what would still make you different? Your answer reveals the advantage that technology cannot copy. It is your judgment, your character, your ability to inspire confidence, your understanding of people, and your capacity to make wise decisions when no algorithm can fully predict the outcome. Those qualities become more valuable, not less, as machines grow more capable. Remember this: the greatest business leaders of the future will not compete against artificial intelligence. They will combine it with a deep understanding of human nature. Technology may change the way we work, but psychology will continue shaping why people buy, whom they trust, and who they choose to follow. In the end, the most powerful competitive advantage will never be the machine sitting on your desk. It will always be the mind that knows how to understand the people sitting across from it.